All right, folks, we're back. Part 2, convention talk. I'm here with Kim Coleman and Aaron Boland. Do you guys want to say hello?
Hello.
Oh.
All right. So, Aaron and I kind of bookended the last one talking about our convention experience and how awesome it was.
That awesome convention.
It was amazing. I'm
kind of awesome planner.
It did. I'm kind of curious
awesome
though, Kim.
With a really awesome committee.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I wanted to hear from you. Is just what I'm sure there were things that you felt like you could improve, but how did you feel like it went? Like, what things did you feel like it got right? What were the things that you feel like went the way that it should have, as far as messaging and message and things that people got out of it?
I think for me, there were two objectives. One is to value the convention. Caucus convention is kind of hanging by a thread as far as relevance to any process. So the caucus convention system used to be the way we put forth our nominees. That was pulled out from under us. So I thought at the very least we need to socially emphasize and sort of have political presence to be relevant. And so I really wanted to just put emphasis on this: value the delegates, value that experience, pump up that day, pimp up that day. So it was exciting and it had an entertainment value to it. And, that was my hope. And there was a delegate that came up to me at the end and said, this was the best convention I'd ever been to. But he said, and here's why I felt valued as a delegate. He says, I felt like you cared enough about my time, my presence here to make it fun, make it entertaining. So that was a big part of that. And the other part was, looking through bylaws, Constitution, page after page. And we didn't find anywhere where it says convention has to be miserable. So yeah, we
Are
did.
You sure? Did you look twice?
Yeah.
That cause you some pain, right?
We're gonna bling up our convention. We're gonna try to make it an experience, and sights and sounds and entertainment and fun and energy. And so yeah, I think we accomplished that. I think that we elevated convention to an importance level that has been missing for a while, and then again, blinged up the entertainment value. So
can I ask about some of those kind of, quote unquote extras that were, included in the convention? Because I didn't attend the dinner the night before. I didn't get to do the scavenger hunt. I was working.
Yeah, I couldn't get the day off.
And the golf tournament. But all those things, like, even though I didn't participate in them, that meant something to me. I don't know how, like, the Morning in America thing went. So if I can get a rundown on those, that'd be great.
Yeah. So, we didn't just hype up the convention day. We really tried to make it a weekend, and whether you could get off of work or not, but that the most fun conventions and conferences I go to, they have the extras that make the work part of it kind of worth it. And so we thought, let's add some things. Let's do some fun things. And for people who want to make it a weekend or get off of work early and play golf, apparently, most golfers just have jobs that they can just take half a Friday off. I don't know. But all of those events were very successful, and I hope that they serve to kind of set a new bar. And it also turns out that we spent about the same as previous conventions. So
really,
we learned that we put more, maybe a lot of idea generating, a lot of sweat equity, a lot of begging, asking for favors. Steve James was our producer, and he was phenomenal to get us some really good performers one voice children's choir, the
Which was
bagpipers.
awesome.
I keep
Oh,
hearing
yeah.
about bagpipers, and we had like 18 bagpipers come on stage and play the medley of our armed forces anthems, and boy, that moves a stadium, and if anything, gives you a lump in the throat. To honor our veterans when they would hear their anthem and they would stand up where they were, and we could cheer them and just kind of give our thanks for their service. And then, a really beautiful children's choir. We had Adam Dietlein, who is starring in Hell Center Theaters as Javert in Les Mis.
There was many middle-aged female delegates that were very grateful for Adam Dietlein.
I maybe one of those.
They told me that much. Yeah.
Not just middle-aged. Let me tell you, my 23-year-old Hannah, she fangirls on Adam Dietlein like crazy. So she follows him, and she not stalkery, well, maybe stalkery, but so there was definitely an entertainment value. Visually, it was spectacular, and but yeah, it basically cost slightly, and I mean slightly more than previous conventions. So it was a lot of calling in favors and begging and really just giving it the attention that our committee felt like it deserved. It's our once a year big freaking pep rally for our party and our values of faith, family, and freedom. That holy cow, we are gonna bling this up. So
like in terms of like the volunteer effort, obviously, you're leading that. You had some directors, and then they had people under them, and they had people under them. It was a big web. How many, individual volunteers do you think ended up being involved with putting this thing together?
I mean, so many. So we had like a core committee of about 7, and then each of them had committees under them and subcommittees. So it really was, dozens and dozens of volunteers. And so that's really a lot of what you saw. There were some professionals on the production side, but mostly volunteer effort. And because we care about it, and we were very, very unified in making this a very positive experience. And on top of that, we're coming out of the COVID winter where people really desired to be together too. So we felt like, this is the first kind of coming out and rubbing our eyes and seeing the sun again. Let's make this a great experience for people. And
let's just say when they announced Kim's name and that she was convention chair and in charge of putting everything together, she got, thunderous applause, not quite Mike Lee, but probably close. Much better received than Mitt Romney. Kim Coleman was.
Well, and it is this is the organizing year, so we really view it as the pep rally ahead of next year when we nominate our candidates for office. And so this is the year to come together. It's the year to organize. It's the year to really solidify around our values as we gear up to choose people next year. It's also, we mentioned in the last episode that it's also the return and report. So as long as the speeches, and as many of the speeches that we have, and we do hear criticism of that. Why are there so many speeches, and why do they go first? And really, next year we're going to nominate people to serve us and represent us. Last year we nominated people to serve us and represent us. This is the time they come back and they return a report. And we should be grateful for that, all 7 hours, that they show up and they return and they report. And not every state has this, but we do. We say this is the time you got to come back and tell us how you did now that we gave you the privilege of representing us. So that's a good thing.
Yeah,
and then
absolutely.
we elect the new officers to lead us into that battle next year. And so we have some firsts with who we elected at this convention.
Oh, that was so interesting. So let's dive right into that. First of all, before we do that, we got your report, Kim, and I just want to congratulate you again because it really was spectacular. It felt like the last couple of conventions I went to, it was almost the family brawl, right? And this time it really was the pep rally. I mean, we were there. Yeah, we had to sit through some speeches that went a little bit long and maybe endure some rhetoric from some people we didn't particularly care for, but all in all, it really did feel that way. So terrific job.
Thank you. Great committee. We should just name them. I'll forget somebody. I don't want to forget anybody.
So do you want to dive into the leadership elections then? Or do you want to try and name everybody?
Yeah, Chris Knoll was logistics. I mean, he pulled that arena together. Jared Cahoon was my vice chair, and he's just jack of all trades and skills and abilities. Barbara Stallone did our rules. Jake Parkinson was chair of the elections themselves. We had Nikki Brammer on communications. So everything you saw in your mailbox and on your email, your website, that was Nikki. We had Brooke Johnson was our volunteer coordinator. Max Sims on some tech, and Doran Barton on some of our media. Who else? Aaron Axon and Alyssa Smales. There with Piper Hill. They were awesome on fundraising and some of the crafty stuff because Aaron, has a little bit of Molly in her. Did I miss anybody? I'm afraid I'm going to miss somebody.
It sounds like.
Oh, and then Sean Milne stepped in at the end. We had to make a change on credentials, so he stepped in as kind of the, junkyard dog on making sure that people were credentialed accurately. And so just a whole big effort, just amazing. And again, Steve James, our producer, and was amazing. Amazing.
All right. Well, I'm going to cut you off. So if you haven't listed anybody, it's my fault. Props to everybody who worked on it because wow, there's no way you could have pulled it off on your own, and it really did come together so well. But yeah, let's talk about this election.
I don't think it's what a lot of people expected. It's certainly not what I expected, and that's not speaking to the way I voted. But it, let's just say the candidates that the governor told us to vote for all lost, all of them.
Yeah.
So the question is, how does that happen when you have a set of delegates that just a year ago gave that same governor the majority of the votes in the gubernatorial convention election, which wasn't, lopsided. I mean, we had a first and a second place in that convention. But I think they were banking on the fact that, these people like Governor Cox. Governor Cox is going to come to, our side. We're going to hitch our wagon to him, and we're going to do very well. And it wasn't even like it wasn't a small majority of people voting against those candidates. They kind of got creamed. Yeah. Like way more than I expected. We're talking like 12 to 1,400 votes against 600 votes in some cases. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it was wild.
Yeah.
Well, and what's interesting too is that, I kind of felt bad for them in the sense that to the extent that it wasn't necessarily them, right? Like I looked at the candidates and to be perfectly honest, I didn't feel like any of the candidates were just an absolute, oh man, they'd be a disaster, right? Where it was just like, well, I can rule them out. They're just, And so it wasn't personal. It really was down to, okay, yeah, how deep in the pocket are you for the governor, or how much water are you going to carry? And it wasn't even necessarily when I talked to some people around, because unfortunately I didn't get to talk to too many delegates until I was on the floor around the booths talking to people, right? People weren't necessarily like terrified that they were going to carry a ton of water for the governor. They just didn't know. And because they didn't know, they were worried.
Well, so that's the question, right? Was it an indictment on the governor of the governor's service? Was it?
I mean, I think it's a contributor. I don't think it's the entire story, but
yeah.
But that is the. I mean, that's the no-brainer question there. Was this an indictment? Every single person the governor endorsed lost. Every single person. And by the way, it wasn't just the governor's endorsement. There's the famous letter that went out a couple days before the convention. It was the governor, it was the lieutenant governor, it was the Speaker of the House, and it was the Senate president.
Mm-hmm. And a hefty majority of the legislature.
Well, on the letter, it was just those guys.
Yeah. Those guys came later, though. They sent out another one that had like 2/3. Well, sorry, maybe like half of the House of Representatives and like 2/3 of the Senate endorsing that slate of candidates.
Now, I may be new. I have to ask this because I remember the previous nominating convention. Everybody was just kind of lone horses in their own races, right? Nobody ran as a team. And then this time there was the team, right? And I don't know if that played into the dynamic, and then the team got the endorsement, which also played into the dynamic. Has anybody done that before over the last years?
You usually don't see them run as slates for leadership. You'll frequently see slates that are put together for for the state central committee, because there's 200 of those, and so you'll see people on slates. But no, you rarely see the chair and vice chair team up, and then of course the secretary jumped onto that ticket. And you usually don't see that. And I think definitely the calculus was off.
Well, and personally, I did not feel the same way about each one of those candidates.
Yeah.
Like I had, pros and cons for each one of those. Mm-hmm. And I definitely didn't vote down the line, particularly in each round, for or against that slate. Right. I had different reasons for each one of them. And so and I'll just say it, I was not particularly thrilled with the idea of Austin Cox being the vice chair. And I mean, in terms of Stuart Pay saying, oh, he's on my ticket, when he had been the chair of Utah County the previous 2 years, and, hadn't done a terrible job. And, in terms of a conservative like me, didn't, it didn't feel like he was trying to excommunicate me from the party. Like sometimes it does feel in other administrations. I didn't dislike him, that much. And so there was definitely different things coming into play there. So I just thought that was kind of bizarre, and maybe it doesn't happen again because it didn't work this time. But when Derek ran, a couple years ago, it's not like he endorsed a chair a candidate for vice chair. It was, Kendra Birkeland and Aaron Starks.
Although there was a vice chair candidate who tried to claim that.
He did say that. It wasn't accurate.
It was not accurate.
Oh, man.
And it probably got him the few votes that he did get, or it probably did help him. but it was not
Yeah,
out.
but I mean, even when Kendra was running for secretary at the time, she didn't claim affiliation with Derek, even though she said I'll work well with whoever the chair ends up being, and I kind of like that a lot better, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that way people don't like have knee-jerk reactions like maybe they did this time to, oh, all of these people must be the same, right?
Well, and I think that people like to have some independence in elected offices, and I think that played into it too. Is a perception that the three people that slated together were not going to be very independent.
Well, particularly Republicans don't like being told what to do.
Yeah.
For better or for worse, we're like, wait, you're going to force us to do this? We hate this.
I really suffer from that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to a certain degree, I looked at it and I was like, this is smart to the extent that they can kind of pool their campaign resources and they can, kind of work together on a lot of things, work together on message and work together on, a lot of things. But the problem that I had, or the problem that I saw, was that the only thing that I saw from Team Utah was what they were calling themselves, was that their names were all on the same paper. Like, I really didn't get like a cohesive vision from them at all. And so if they had come and they had said, look, we're Team Utah and this is what we are all about, and I had really, identified with the platform that they were putting out there for the where they wanted to take the party as leadership, I probably would have been more inclined to vote for them. But I didn't have that communicated. And granted, I kind of just skimmed their materials that came in the mail and threw it away. And so it may have had it on there, but there was nothing that grabbed my attention and made me really read it. And I also suffered from having worked rather closely with Stewart because within the Utah County Republican Party, I'm actually the Constitution and Bylaws chair. And so I'm involved in a lot of the business in Utah County Party. And so I kind of feel like I know what he's about in a lot of ways, and had talked to him a couple of times about kind of what he thought about where he wanted to take the state party as he was deciding to run and then decided to run.
Well, I am going to assert that a good bit of it was an indictment against the governor.
I think that's fair.
I'm going to assert that. We do kind of have, last week there was some poll that came out that said the governor is climbing in popularity. I think he had hit like
super popular. Everyone loves him. I mean, you can't not love him, right?
I think he's getting close to 63%, which is still, pretty far below where Herbert was, just a couple years ago.
And how many of them are Democrats?
Well,
it's kind of like when you look at Romney's approval rating in Utah, people are like, hey, it's close to 50%, but he has something like an 85% approval rating with Democrats.
Mm-hmm. So here you have...
It's a crazy huge amount.
So back in November, I think it was November, Utah Foundation came out with a poll that is regarded generally as being pretty valid and reliable, that said the Democrats have now doubled their presence in Utah. It's now 15%. So Republicans still really, really dominate the state. 85% Republican voting. So 63%, says about 20% of Republicans are really just not okay with you. But this, the convention, people want to say that it's a little bit more conservative, but also good research on that.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong either, because I talk to a lot of people that tend to be a bit more moderate. As we talk through some of this stuff, some of these issues, there's take on Mitt Romney, their take on some of the issues where, I expressed my frustration with Spencer Cox. They just, they didn't see a lot of those things the same way, especially some of the issues where I am just down the line. I'm like, look, I'm sorry, but this is black and white for me. And not all issues are, but like abortion, black and white, the transgender stuff is black and white for me. And, and they didn't see it that
Their
way.
priorities are different. And you actually see it in the data, right? You look at the vote for Romney's censure. It was about 50-50. It was pretty close. But 50% of our delegates didn't want that, right? And you look at how that compares to other states or other Republican parties, right? Their censures passed. All of them. Ours was the only one that didn't. And you see that this same group of delegates, we haven't changed delegates now for what seems like a decade. These 2018 delegates, 50% of them voted for Romney to be their nominee. And 50% thought, hey, I want somebody more conservative. And so even in, terms of the Republican population in Utah, I think it's a fairly decent representation, even if the other, side of things, as I like to call them, establishment folks, even if they don't want to admit that, I think we have all different sorts.
Well, and the other thing is some people are conservative and then they'll vote for a Romney or a Cox because for whatever reason they just like them, right? And then you'll get establishment folks for the same reason will vote for a conservative person because they talk to them and they like them.
But or they just don't know better. And quite honestly, I mean, I go around the state and do different events for Pro-Life Utah and talk to different people. And, I have a lot of interaction through social media, et cetera, with, just common Republicans, as well as delegates, as well as elected officials. And I know a lot of people who said, I wish that everyone knew how Cox was going to be before, he got elected, which was by 2%, right? Because that would have changed things. And, I like to say, neener, 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 I told you so. But, not everyone agrees with me. There's still a lot of people who, think he walks on water. And, the governor always wants to take credit for, the economy of Utah and, how well we do because we're an industrious people. But, I tell people these things and, either they love him and they just don't want to believe it's true, or they realize what's been happening and they're very upset. Just in my own little, realm of politicking, I have a lot of my conservative friends who are very upset that they voted for him. So, I mean, there could be, some change in terms of the landscape there. Obviously, who's ever doing these polls, it doesn't show that. And that's, why I wish more people knew what I knew. But I think we have a good representation. Something that the media didn't report about convention is that, Spencer Cox got boozed too.
You're welcome.
Definitely not as many. Definitely not as many as Romney. Well, yeah, but there was a good amount, right? I mean, and then he just got up there and talked, and he made some similar comments to, hey, I know a lot of you guys hate me, or there's a lot of people out there that don't like me. I don't recall in the past, having, elected officials having to make those kinds of comments.
Well, and those are some pretty strong words. I know a lot of you hate me. Wow.
Maybe dislike. Well, he's also called people who dislike him his enemy, which is kind of awkward. But
even Republicans, his enemy, and I don't know.
Well, and these guys, I mean, I don't hate them, but I resent that they go out and speak like they represent me and then do some of the things that they do.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes we like tension between, for instance, federal government, state governments, tension between chambers, senates, and House, tension between branches of government. Sometimes that's healthy. It's desirable. And I looked at Saturday's vote as part of it might be an indictment of the governor's performance and our top leaders' performance, and some may just be the desire to have tension and to not just totally be lockstep, which is not usually where you have your party. I mean, usually your party is more of a facilitator and more, you don't necessarily want tension between your party and its elected officials, but this is a time where, I mean, I think we are seeing more than ever dissatisfaction in our party of some of our top elected officials, and questioning how strong can the party be, questioning do our elected officials really represent our party values, our platform values. And we're watching right now today a lot of information unfold about Leader McCarthy. And, we've been disappointed in Senator McConnell, Mitch McConnell.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think where the party has been more the facilitator of some of these top officials, I think there might be desire for there to be tension, for the party to be a means of influencing the elected officials instead of the other way around. And we are the party. The theme of our convention was "We are the people," and are we the people because we are the people. They represent us. And do we have a party that can lean in to political processes? And historically, or I should say most recently, the parties had a very hands-off and voice-off position with the governor, the legislature, our federal delegation. And it really isn't, I think the party should serve to be the protector, defender, promoter of our platform principles, of our, faith, family, and freedom principles. We should be hedging up our elected officials. We should be reminding them, what those beliefs are. And while they have independence as elected officials, but reminding them, hey, you said you would carry our water as a party.
Mm-hmm.
And when you don't, can we lean into that?
Right?
Or when you're struggling with whether or not we should protect children from having their genitals amputated as children, which is a no-brainer across the board.
Yeah, that seems like an easy one.
Can the party be a vehicle that represents the three of us and 2 million other people in this state to say, hey, remember who you are, remember what you stand for, remember what you told us you stand for, and lean into that. And so
even the best of people get pulled by all these different interest groups, right? And lobbies. And we've seen the influence of, corporations and national corporations for sure on the national level, but it definitely happens in Utah. And, I thought maybe this was just a hot take the first time I heard it, but I've heard it dozens of times since. There are people that come to Utah and get involved in the political process here, and they say, wow, this is the most corrupt in the nation. I mean, and by that, what do they mean, right? They mean there's so much horse trading and there's so much backdoor dealing that it's almost like we don't have any power as people to have, you know, a say. And that, I think there's some pushback there, right? It's like we look on the national stage, we look at some of the other governors across, you know, the nation and some of the other legislative bodies. You know, we have Ron DeSantis just kicking butt, like left and right. He's in a purple state. He's going to have a fight to be reelected as governor against a Democrat. We don't have that in Utah, right? We don't have that. And yet their governor, they ban critical race theory. They prevent men from competing in female sports.
Vaccine passport.
They protect freedom of speech. They outlaw vaccine passports. They protect, you know, medical privacy. They do all of the main things that Republicans across the nation are crying out for, and we don't. And
So
that's just so disappointing. And then you have Asa Hutchinson in Arkansas. He vetoed their bill to prevent, you know, genital amputation on children. And the legislature came back and they 2/3 overrode his veto.
That's beautiful.
That's beautiful. And people tell us in Utah we can't do that. You can't override the governor.
So you can't override
that's too much power.
You can't override the governor, and we've done it on the safest of bills. But on the ones that really, really matter, sometimes what we do is we have the preemptive veto is what we have. And I'm speaking about this from experience from inside the belly of the beast. We have a preemptive veto. So the governor will signal, don't let this see the light of day. Don't let it hit my desk. I'll veto it. And what it does is it lets the other be unaccountable and point their fingers at the other. And so we actually didn't have a bill pass protecting children against genital amputation because the governor
didn't get out of rules committee.
Don't let it hit my desk. And so the legislature could say, well, you know what? It was kind of going to be dead on arrival anyway. Put a bunch of dang people on the record. Put them on the record.
Yeah.
Let the governor veto. But no, it's really the squishy way for squishy people to not be accountable to their voters. And so, did I just say that? I meant to think that. And so I love it. I do think that Saturday's vote was a little bit of, I'd rather have some less experienced people that may not ever raise a dollar for the party, but will they at least stand on our principles, protect, defend our platform? And you know what? That's a question that I had for myself. I'm looking at a group or individuals that I think, you know, they could probably sustain the party fairly well, but they're aligned with the guy who can't protect women in sports or children and then say, wear the damn mask to harm our children. I think I'd take Carson and Tina over the person who we know for sure is not going to give any pushback or lean in against the governor. We know for sure, and the governor even put as much in his letter to say, I need somebody who's going to be with me.
Yeah. Now, and some of those the candidates who were running said, you know, there was subtext in that letter, and part of the subtext is, do this or we're going to actively work against you.
Right.
Like we may be Republicans, but power's more important to us. And so that bothers me.
Yeah.
Right? Here's what I want to see. You know, the governor may have access to this long donor list. If he cares about the party, if he cares about us succeeding, then he helps us out. Right? Even if he didn't get his way, because we didn't get our way when you got elected. The least you can do is help the party succeed if you believe in the party. But if they only believe in themselves, they're okay with the party failing, even though they're quote unquote Republicans. That just baffles me, right?
Well,
that dynamic.
Are you watching?
Kim keeps making this point, and I want to just drive it home. is for me, it's still not the party. It's never been about the party for me. It's been about the principles, and the principles are in the platform. So if you care about the stuff that's in the platform, which is true, which is real, which matters, then you're going to go to bat for it. And if you don't, then you won't, and we need to find somebody else.
Right. So, to me, the decision Saturday might have been a Flight 93 decision for a lot of people. And I'm watching Wyoming. I think Wyoming is very interesting right now. Wyoming kind of got their stuff together as a party and said, you know what? We're actually going to mean what we say when it comes to our platform, and we're going to lean in as a party. So when Senator Cheney voted to convict a man who had been denied due process and there was insufficient evidence to convict, their whole party activated. And you had, I think, every county party in the state, and then the state party have resolutions against her. They proffered active criticism against her, and they have committed to make sure she is not their party nominee next time. And I thought, that wasn't about Trump, and it wasn't about an impeachment. It was about a party who said, you know what? We're either going to stand for something or we're not, but we're going to stop just saying it. And I would love to see our party get to that point, because it's meaningless. It's meaningless if we do nothing and say nothing. And we just have a convention once a year. And we vote R, and sometimes it doesn't mean anything. So I think Wyoming's kind of a state to watch. They kind of went a little bit, purity on what they believe in. I don't think that's a bad thing. And now, notwithstanding Big Tent and 80-20 principles, there are some clear places that it is un-Republican to vote some certain ways. Yep. Unrepublican to not protect children against genital amputation mutilation. It is unrepublican to not protect free speech.
Yeah, and I mean, you made a good point about the Big Tent. I feel like a lot of these people who aren't bothered by those things, or maybe they're willing to ignore them, they definitely would not mind if things went our way as well, right? They might be an apologist when it comes to poor performance in alignment with our party platform, but they're not going to complain if they align either, right? So you might as well stick to what you're supposed to believe in. I think that we can unify around Republican principles, even if there's a couple things that you may not agree with an elected official on in terms of how they want to do things on a particular issue. You can still be Republican, and we do need all those people, but we have a lot of people, maybe I would say in my camp, or even further to the right, who say, I'm abandoning the Republican Party because they abandoned me. And then there's a bunch of people more on the moderate side who say the same thing. And they want to excommunicate the conservatives, and the conservatives want to excommunicate the rhinos. And I kind of think we look at it and we say, the numbers aren't there for us to win unless we're all unified, right? And we got to concentrate on those things. I think when we lean into our principles, it does go well. And I think that our elected officials, they do change minds, right? When we have an elected official say this principle no longer matters, then the constituency might also, to a certain degree, say this principle no longer matters until there really is no differentiation between the candidate who's a Republican and who's a Democrat, and maybe they just vote for the Democrat, right? So we need to hold to our principles and try to include everybody as much as possible. I don't know, I guess, what the solution to that is. I just think we should stop trying to say, "Oh, you're an extremist," or you're not worth it. We do need all the votes. We need everybody. Doesn't mean that we need to become Democrats to do it, though.
Well, and here's the other thing, Aaron and Charles, is as I mentioned, the Utah Foundation. I was looking that up real quick. I think it was from December. Some very interesting things. They noted that the divide between Republicans and Democrats has become wider than ever, and is a widening gulf there. But they noted it's because the Democrats have moved so far left, but that Republicans have generally remained the same. And sometimes when I hear people say, well, the Republican Party has left me, I challenge them. Name the thing we have changed.
Right.
Have we become, is it a new Republican principle to be pro-life? Is it a new Republican principle to become pro-Second Amendment? Is it a new Republican principle?
Or to be against rioting or
against
in favor
rioting,
of law and
or
order?
Supporting our military and our local law enforcement? Is it a new Republican principle to want less taxation and less regulation? We really haven't moved. But the Democrats have. I mean, clearly they have. So,
Yeah.
I think rhetoric for everybody has become a lot more coarse than before. And I think, and I don't want to excuse it, but, there are some of us right of center that are frightened, that are very, very concerned to see so much of those faith, family, freedom principles being disregarded, being eroded, being marginalized, being mocked, being criminalized. And so many in our party are going right along with it. And sometimes that's because there are elected officials that think it's the popular thing to do, and they'll be liked more and they'll be reelected if they move to the left. And but really,
and it's not even necessarily popular. It's just what the media tells us is
what
popular.
the media tells you, and
that's why people have the wrong idea about our party. And they say, "Oh, well, the right has gone so far extreme." You're exactly right, Kim, and I know exactly what poll you're talking about. The Republican Party hasn't moved for 2 decades ideologically. We haven't moved. And the Democrats and the left have moved an entire quintile. If you're a data person, that's 20%.
Yeah.
That is 20% more socialist and extreme left. Like, if you cannot see this, if you think that the right is extreme and the left is not, then you are being lied to. The media is telling you these things. It is not true. Sorry, continue, Kate.
And so kind of getting back to convention and the leadership and our new party, that's always my hope, that I have a national Republican Party, that I have a state Republican Party. In my county Salt Lake County just elected Chris Knoll. And that's one reason why I supported him, because I do believe he will lean in to protect our faith, family, freedom values, our platform values and principles, where, we don't see that too much in our state because we want to be nice. There's also that. We want to be nice. We don't like to be government.
Can I just say
I did boo some people this weekend. But
you did boo some people.
I have something
nice, Charles.
It wasn't very nice. I want to add something here. Well, 2 things, and one of them is going to kind of take us in a little bit different direction. And so I'll let Aaron speak to this first. before I do that. But the first point I want to make is that we were talking about some of this at church, right? And essentially it was, hey, there's some scary stuff coming, right? We're talking about like the second coming of Jesus, right? And whether you believe or not, the scriptures say that some scary stuff is coming, right? And it was essentially, how do we deal with scary stuff, right? How do we deal with just the insane stuff that comes our way? And what you guys are talking about is 100% right in line with all that stuff. We have to know who we are. We have to know who we are, and we have to stand firm. And the thing is that at the end of the day, if we do that, we know the score, right? And then the other thing that we have to do is we have to stand together, right? And so as people of faith, we stand with God. As people of principle, we stand together. And if we can do that, then as these people continue to drift aimlessly to the left, they're going to continue to lose more and more people. And we can be that bulwark that they can come back and anchor to. And sometimes it's going to be a fight, and sometimes it's going to be scary. I know Aaron went through being canceled last year. I got canceled in 2019 and almost lost my business because of what I believed in. I don't know of an example of Kim going through this, but I wouldn't be shocked if she has. At the end of the day, I'm stronger for it. And, I have people now coming to me knowing where I stand and saying, either I was wrong or I wasn't willing to take a stand before, and now I am. And this is where we need to be. And so, what we're talking about here, whether we can project this onto our party leadership or not, or the people we elect, what matters is who we are and who we join arms with within the party, and then what we do with that.
So if I can chime in on that, it kind of makes me think about, us linking arms and standing strong together, mm-hmm. and lifting where we stand.
Yep.
And, we've mentioned that maybe our elites that want to tell us what to do, maybe the Elta Club is not too happy with what we, the people, recently decided about the Republican Party in Utah. And I think that I think that this team can raise money. Mm-hmm. The question is, can it be enough, and can we hold Congressional District 4? Can we hold all of the seats that we need to, and can we win back seats that we need to from the Democrats? And quite honestly, if we decided that we do not want the corporate structure or kind of the machine, the political machine to control us in Utah, we do need to step up as individuals. And, the grassroots of Utah, the Republican Party membership, the organizations that now, consider themselves quote unquote patriot groups, who have gone largely unaffiliated. If we don't, chip in $20, of our own money, to keep things this way, then we're not going to be able to stand on principle. And so, personally, I want to support the party when they support what I believe in. And I believe in this leadership team, and I'm going to chip in. And I want the Republican constituency of Utah to support the Republican Party, which, unfortunately, we don't do super well.
I was looking for the Venmo. I can't find the Venmo, but there is a Utah Republican Party Venmo. And, if you don't want the funds to support the party to come from big business,
or from Democrats,
lobbyists, or from
Gail Miller, Miller and Scott Anderson. If you don't want the party to be controlled by literal Democrats, then you'll step up.
Well, yeah. The other thing too, and I want to chime in on this too, right? Because we largely, and this isn't even the second point I was going to make, but I think it's important extension of this. But it's not just money, right? I mean, I have certain talents. I mean, I reached out to Kim and Aaron because I trust their opinions. They have way more experience with this, but I've been podcasting for 13 years, right? And so, I'm the one that hits record, and I'm the one that gets the sucker edited and released, right? And so I have a skill that I can
You're
bring
a great host, Charles.
I have a skill I can bring to the table, right? And you do too, right? Everybody has these skills. We have things we can bring to the table. We need to not just volunteer our money, but we need to volunteer our time and talents. And the thing is when we're talking about grassroots, right? We're talking about, because this is a grassroots set of leadership, right? None of them are establishment, not just in their support, right? I think Jordan is the one that has the most sort of political experience or savvy. These are people that were elected because they're outside of the establishment in more ways than just their support. And so we need to get in there and we need to help them push the movement forward. And so, Kim brings a lot of experience with her, legislative experience and, her organizing skills and things like that, right? And Aaron has a lot of the same kinds of skills. And, we have this knowledge that we can bring to bear, and so we need to be involved and we need to be in there helping them get the message out and helping them bring people back into the party and help them start doing what we need to do in order to support the principles that we stand for.
Well, and
support them monetarily.
So let's
yes.
I mean, let's be clear. Like this legislative session, we had a collective legislature that would not protect children from genital mutilation. And by the way,
I know, what the heck?
2 years before
No,
that,
serious.
no, we had a legislature that couldn't do that. We had a legislature.
No, they wouldn't do it.
Or wouldn't. It's a wouldn't. We had a legislature that wouldn't protect women in sports. We had a legislature that would not prohibit vaccine passports. This legislature
that wouldn't hear a single pro-life bill.
That wouldn't have a pro-life bill. So let me just remind everybody, we are in a war for your faith, for your family, for your freedom, for everything that really is the underpinning of everything meaningful to Republicans, and our legislature and our governor blew it. We are in a war. We are not in a freaking pillow fight. We're not in a pillow fight. And if our Republican Party isn't going to be a help in that fight, then what's it for? What's it for? So I think that is the question that a lot of people have. We blame our national debt on both parties. We blame the deep state on both parties. We blame the massive growth of government and government intrusion in our lives on both parties. But at least at our core, we have a set of values that we can identify, that we can articulate, that we have codified. And by golly, when are we going to start leaning into making sure that we promote those and defend those? And when our elected officials don't, then we need to find replacements. This show is called Down Ballot. And this year we get to look down ballot at our municipal elections. And those are nonpartisan, but we know who the Republicans and who the Democrats are. And even though they're nonpartisan, you better believe faith, family, freedom, conservative values, platform values, and principles are on full display in our city councils. I am looking at my city council in West Jordan, and I'm going back 8 months plus of city council minutes, and I want to see where they protected our children. And they may say, well, that's the state, that's the school board. No, you have a platform. You have a duty to citizens within the boundaries of our city. What did you do to protect our children? What did you do to protect our businesses? And show me the picture or the iPhone video of where you stood on my city boundary and said, Jenny Wilson, you end here. Show me what you did. And I want to see what resolution you put forward. I want to see what you said at a podium in a press conference. I want to see something. You know what I saw in West Jordan? The only discussion of COVID-related matters was how are we going to spend the money? If you didn't protect our children, you didn't protect our businesses and our economy, we didn't protect our community, that was your prime directive. So this year, go look at your city council agendas and you see which of your city council people stood up for your children, your businesses, your community. And if they didn't, go look for somebody else and call me and I'll help you. I'll help. We'll find somebody and I'll help you in your city. It's got to start at our cities and it's got to go all the way up to our federal. But this year, you get to affect your city council and your mayor's races. And that's my challenge to you, to do that.
So there was a fairly, widespread national story that came out recently talking about a municipal election that happened in Texas in an area called South Lake, which is in a suburb of Houston. I think Houston, not Dallas. One of those big Texas cities. And, you said it. I mean, they're nonpartisan, but, candidates who were GOP, who were conservatives, won in every single one of those elections. Every single one. 2 candidates for school board, 2 candidates for city council, and the mayor. And one of their main messages was, we're not going to be indoctrinated with critical race theory and with the 1619 Project in our schools. Those school board members won 70%. And maybe people are assuming that's just a super conservative area. That county went to Joe Biden. That county was won by Joe Biden. And 70% of the people voting in that municipal election voted for the conservatives. They took over. If we stand by our principles and we message correctly so people know what matters to us and why they should care, then we win. And we don't just barely win, we kick butt.
Yep.
Because most people really do believe in conservative principles. We're led to believe that we have a changing nation, and I don't see it. I don't see it. But we have far too many people that say they slap conservative, they slap Republican on a flyer, and we believe it. So, I invite you to scrutinize, start with your city council, go look at how they voted, go look at all of their minutes are public record. In the state of Utah, you can go look at every set of minutes and see what they talked about, see what they prioritized, see if any of your council people stood up against some government mandates from different governments.
If they protected your property rights, if they protected your neighborhood, right?
Your children.
That's true.
Our children.
Your children.
Yep.
And I don't care if it's not the job of the city council to fight mask mandates in the school. It is. You have a bully pulpit. You have a jurisdiction that first and foremost you protect. It's not all about public works and street lamps.
True.
Although if there's not enough street lamps, you should also fire that guy.
All right, so I had one other point that I wanted to make, pulling us back around to the candidates that were elected. And this was that the candidates that did win, I felt like did actually represent themselves better in a lot of ways than the candidates that didn't. In particular, in the secretary's race and in the vice chair's race.
Okay, so I was backstage, but people say that Olivia running for secretary had the speech of the day.
It
blew the roof off the building, but I couldn't hear it. Tell me, I can't wait to.
So
biggest applause out of any speech, including all the elected officials and Robert O'Brien.
Yeah. So if somebody gets up and is quoting party bylaws from memory, I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna I was riveted because she got up and she basically said, look, this is the job. This is how I'm going to do it. And this is why. And she based it all off of the party platform, the party constitution, and the party bylaws. And I was like, that lady gets it. That lady gets it. Yeah. She's on top of it. She knows what she's after. And by dang, if anybody doesn't vote for her, they're in the restroom.
Well, so like I said, I didn't hear the speech, but it was like Napoleon Dynamite right after he stopped dancing and the whole place erupted. And I walked up to her and I'm like, you just won, right? And she goes, what? And I go,
oh yeah,
won.
Yeah. Everyone knew she won.
Yeah,
everyone knew.
And
okay, so the votes on that 1,433 to 614.
Yeah, wow. I mean, Kendra's speech was fine. It
was good. Yeah,
I don't have a beef with her at all, but Olivia won that election with that speech. And then,
with bylaws and constitution, and data privacy and transparency.
Yep.
No joke.
You're still not convincing me. You just said really sleepy words.
No, she delivered them very well. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure she was wearing hammer pants. You may not have noticed, but they were striped up and down. And I'm pretty sure they were hammer pants.
Yeah. But, I mean, I have to say, for as much as we're saying that, there was some indictment of the establishment, and I think there was, she definitely earned votes. She did go out there and convince people to vote for her.
And same thing with Jordan.
Same thing.
Jordan delivered.
The other thing, though, is that every time that I encountered Austin, I don't know if it was just me and I couldn't connect with him, but it just didn't feel quite real with him. And it could have just been me, but he just didn't feel quite as sincere. Jordan seemed to really want it, and he seemed to really believe that he could make the difference that he wanted to make. And he got me to buy in, and that's why I voted for him. It wasn't.
I've known Jordan Hess for years, and that really, he is the real deal. And what you see is what you get. That genuineness is just him.
And that means so much. What I said was that Jordan was 100% authentic, and Austin was 100% smarmy.
Well, but I've seen people that I know that get up and they just can't deliver when they speak in front of people. And so
True.
I have to give Austin a little bit of benefit of the doubt because I don't know him. But Jordan, just every time I saw him speak, every time that he came across, I was just like, he gets it, and this is real, and he's gonna come in and he's gonna work.
So for better or for worse, Austin is a political operative, and he's not even a bad political operative. He's a fairly successful political
having
operative.
Elected a Democrat against a very good Republican.
He has also elected a Democrat. But he also helped elect Spencer Cox. But I repeat myself. but right. So he's run a governor's race, but every time you talk to him, it was like, well, I'm hot stuff, and if you don't see that, it's kind of your fault. And I also am involved with a political action committee called the Utah Platform Republicans PAC, and we had a meet and greet where we talked to candidates and, asked them questions. It wasn't a debate necessarily. But I feel like it was one of the only touch points that people got, and it wasn't even from the party, which is unfortunate. And so a lot of, people ended up watching that. People would bring up concerns to Austin about, how much he would steer the party in the direction of, his favorite people, Spencer Cox, or, there was people that were concerned with the mailer that went out that said it was from the Utah Republican Party, which isn't a big deal, but people don't understand it. And so when he was asked that question, he said, I don't see what the big deal is. Really, guys, this has happened for a long time and you just got to forget about it. I mean, and that might be true, but he didn't show concern. He didn't show that he actually cared about, what these people were expressing. And I can trust this person, and this person might care about what I say, versus this person will never listen to me. Those messages, they come across. And I feel like they came across 100% in that race.
Yeah. So the chair's race was kind of a different animal for me than the other two. And I think part of it's because I know Stuart. The other thing is that of the type of person that I would expect to see kind of be a party chair, Stuart kind of fits that mold better than the other two did. As it just stereotypically, I guess, just in the way that he talks and walks and acts and, dresses and all that stuff. Stuart's also an attorney. So, he had kind of a lot of those kinds of things going for him. Like if you looked at him, you wouldn't be shocked to know he was running for party chair. But, I've also kind of watched him operate in the Utah County Republican Party. And there were some things that he did that I liked and some things that he did that I didn't like. And honestly, that didn't make him my first choice. But, I just didn't have much occasion to get to see Carson at all, but he was very sincere on stage. And I think that's ultimately what won it for him in the second round. My take with Tina, I voted for Tina in the first round. And the reason is because when I talked to her, she seemed to come across as very, very smart. She seemed to come across as having principles and ideas that were very much in line with the way that I think about things. And she listened. And people would ask her all kinds of questions, and she took them all seriously, and she really just seemed to care and get it. And so that's kind of where I came across with a lot of it. So
I voted for Tina in the first round as well.
Yep.
And quite honestly, I was kind of shocked when the data came back from the first round.
Yeah.
I think we hit the nail on the head with the sincerity that Carson did come across as very sincere. Yeah. I do know that Carson called a buttload of delegates, and he did not spare his time. He called me and spoke to me for an hour.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Basically just shooting the breeze.
Well, pretty much doesn't everybody talk to you for an hour?
Maybe. No one can get off the phone with me. It's a problem I have. But, and I believed in Tina. And I think, Kim, we need to have another discussion maybe on this podcast at another time about female candidates in politics and why every single female that I've ever supported, except for one, has not made it. Right. And do they get a fair shake or don't they? But anyway, that's for another conversation. But it was close, right? Mm-hmm. And it came down to this: 35 votes either way. If they flipped from Tina to Carson just from speeches, that was the difference in the election. Because I don't think any of us have any doubt if Tina made it to the second round, she would have won. Probably. And she only underperformed Carson by 70 votes in that first round. Mm-hmm. So just 35. Just 35 votes. I think that she did a great job. I don't think it's anything to, snub your nose at. I think she did a good job campaigning, or at least the best job that she could. So, but yeah, when it came down to it, other people selected, Carson, and and in the second round, right? That there was a choice there, and there was only 1 minute of speech in between the first and second round, um, and Stewart got up there and he gave a speech about being a veteran, and that's a good angle, and I applaud him for his service, and I think that does speak to the qualities of his character and his personality. But it was a speech that I had heard before, and it's a speech that he had practiced, and that's how it had come across. And Carson got up there and said, "You want the same old thing, then don't vote for me. But if you want change, then we got it." And he just raised his hand and walked off the stage, and yeah, blew it out of the park.
Yeah.
Well, I do believe that the slate pulled Stewart down.
Yep.
Definitely.
Well, and I don't think Stewart was a poor choice. I think all of the other factors.
But
it's the way it came out.
But when I say that, is it that it was a slate itself is a little bit off-putting? Is it who else was on the slate? Is it that the governor endorsed the slate, but the slate did not help Stewart at all?
Well, and I think he was the strongest candidate on the slate.
Right.
Out of all of them, yeah, exactly.
To your point, I think it hurt him the most.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway,
yeah.
So moving forward, I mean, that's my hope, is that we build a Republican Party that recognizes the threats to our Republican Party and our Republican platform values, and is willing to step into the arena and be a player, and not just lay down while other special interests smear us, but be our own special interest. It's a big freaking special interest to defend and promote our platform values and principles. And I hope we're ready to do that. And the outgoing leadership team had a different mission. They were, Derek Brown was uniquely suited to bring some pretty divided factions of our party together. He was a very strong caucus convention supporter. He kind of bridged the gap, I think, pretty well between two significantly divided factions. And I think there was a time for that, and he was the guy for the time. Mm-hmm. Now the time is, gird up, grab your shields. We're in a battle. We're in a battle for our freedom, the very essence of our freedom, and we're not in a pillow fight. So I hope that's partly who we've elected, but that's also offensive to historical donors, to people who have been the power players. It would take a little bit of disruption. But I hope that's where...
People ask me, "Hey, Aaron, it seems like you criticize, Republicans more than anyone else, right? And you're this solid GOP guy. You have many positions within the party. You volunteer your butt off for the party. You believe in the party, and yet you criticize different elected officials and actions and votes. I agree with you on all of that, and I've just decided not to help. I've just decided to leave the party." The answer to that is, this is how you make your voice heard. This is how you enact change. This is how you improve the party. If I just gave up and I just sat back and wasn't involved, would I have any room to complain about different things that happen? I don't think so. I have to do what's within my own power, and I think that's what you're speaking to, Kim, is we do need to gird up, right? We need to stop, being petty about things that don't go our way, and we need to help the principles that we believe in succeed.
Yeah, well, and I I completely agree with both of you. The thing is that I think the further down the road we get, and just to the point where the Democratic Party is moving further and further and further to the left, the time where you can be a comfortable Republican, if it's not gone, it will be soon. And they are going to come for you one way or the other. And the only way that you can remain comfortable is either to give up or to gird up.
And we've never really seen those when you let your freedoms go. And I choose those words accurately. It's letting them go.
True.
You don't have any examples of where they come back. Once you lose them, they're gone.
Yep. And the other thing is, and I'll just point this out. I mean, when I got canceled, it wasn't because I took a stand on some deep-seated conservative principle. I got canceled because they wanted me to cancel somebody else, and I told them no. Right? And that's ultimately, I think, where a lot of people are going to end up, is your conservative friend, your conservative neighbor, your conservative family member. They're going to want you to cut them out, to try and take away their freedom. And that may be where you have to stand. Or maybe it's going to be when they try and take yours or try and take away your children's. But we're in a fight, and there's no way around it. And so, yeah.
And
we got to do it.
Let's be pretty careful about not confusing. The left is really, really good about confusing language. When we hold our elected officials accountable, that is not canceling them.
No.
So let's be very clear that when we stand on our principles, when we talk about our principles, right and wrong, good and evil, freedom versus tyranny, when we express dissatisfaction with an elected official like Senator Romney, that's not cancel culture. It's the way it's supposed to be. And
but when you vote somebody out and you get mad at your elected official, that is a centuries-long, time-honored tradition.
But that's sort of the new tactic, is to, smack us down as, you're just part of cancel culture.
When you hire somebody, you get to give them feedback and you get to fire them. That's the way it works.
But when you try to take away somebody else's livelihood because they disagree with you, or make their life unlivable because they disagree with you politically, that's cancel culture. That's what that is.
Yep.
Firing an elected official is just good old democracy.
Yep.
So if that's our new definition of cancel culture, then we've got a lot of city council people that need to be canceled. They need to be replaced. So I think that's for me. That's my charge, Charles, on the down ballot.
Yep.
Show.
Well, that's where we're at, and we probably ought to talk about that one sooner or later too, because that's this year.
I'm going to study up on my city council races and on my mayoral race, and maybe we can talk about that in a future podcast, and maybe just give some people some ideas of how they can engage in the political process and become more knowledgeable before they vote.
Yeah,
filing deadlines are next month.
That's what I was going to point out. The filing deadlines are soon, so we need to be on this now.
Yep. You can find me on Facebook if you want to talk about some of your races, and then we can come back future episode, get specific.
Let's do it.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think this is a good place to stop.